You know, it was only 5 years ago that I realized I was courageous for the very first time. And it changed my life. How many of you feel like you're brave or courageous? Raise your hand. Okay, good. I see that some of you feel you are. For those that didn't raise your hand, consider these everyday acts of bravery. Have you ever found yourself reaching for that remote control and that bag of chips, and then reach for your tennis shoes instead? Or have you ever had to say no to that glass of wine or beer in a social situation? I know I have. Or have you ever had to say no to people or circumstances that do not serve you? Courage is different for everyone. Look at my put-together dress and my constant smile. I am one that always wants to look polished, poised, and put together. Perhaps you may not even suspect that I have a broken past. Just when you think you have someone figured out, you don't. Not really. As a life coach, I've had the joy and privilege to peer into people's souls and help them learn even more about themselves. Their stories inspire me. They intrigue me. But they also confuse me. Take, for instance, my dear friend Rosa walked in one day with a flyer of her 18-year-old son, Ricardo. He was missing. He was handsome and bright and had a bright future ahead of him. He even had his mother in his phone under the name My Hero. The fear I saw in Rosa's eyes coursed through my body like a menacing electric shock. At the time, my 2 young sons were still living at home. I couldn't even bear the thought of ever losing them. I held them like never before that night. And then, the unthinkable happened. The authorities found Rosa's son in the middle of Wyoming, beaten to death for no apparent reason. It appeared to be a random act of hate, but we'll probably never know. My heart sank for Rosa and how she'd ever get over something like this. I watched her over the years remain a loving and kind woman. It appeared that this devastating loss was not going to transform her into a bitter and resentful woman. I watched her endure this unimaginable tragedy with grace, strength, and courage like I had never seen in my life. How did she do this? I wanted to understand how some women like Rosa could find insurmountable strength to survive unthinkable personal tragedies in their lives, while others surrendered to the same obstacles, and in many cases never recovered from them. I needed to know what made one woman strong and another woman buckle. To help me with this, I created a survey on the subject of courage, and I found 100 women willing to take it. These women were everyday people like you and I. They were wives, daughters, sisters, entrepreneurs, business owners, teachers, students. Story after story, I began to see a pattern of how these women pulled through. They figured it out, and they courageously prevailed. But they never saw what they did as courageous. They just did what they had to do, and then they moved on to the next challenge. In fact, the majority of these women hesitated to fill out the survey because they didn't see themselves as brave at all, ever. Here are just a few of the stories in the survey. A wife leaves an abusive relationship, starts her own successful business from the ground up with no working capital. a teenager abducted by a cult, held against her will. She plots her own escape and breaks free. A mother nurses 2 of her 3 children through breast cancer. One survives, and the other one not so lucky. A young mother tragically loses her husband in a plane crash, leaving her to raise her 4 small children alone. Today, I want everyone to know that the battle scars of life should be honored and celebrated, not hidden and avoided. I want to tell you these stories today so that you see your own courage. I want my survey ladies to recognize their own valor and not shortchange themselves. After all, don't we need female role models now more than ever? Yes, we do. One evening, not very long ago, I was giving a presentation to a group of women when one of the ladies asked me about my own courage. Right there in that moment, something started to chip away deep down inside my heart. In that suppressed little spot so expertly hidden beneath the facade of my professional suit and my constant smile. Had I shown bravery in my own life? Or had I just mislabeled as something I had to do to survive, just like these 100 women had? Did I need to recognize my own valor? Like the women in the survey, I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I ever demonstrated courage in my own life. But then, I was reminded of how these women somehow found the fortitude and the grit to get through some of the worst moments of their lives. It was like holding up a mirror to my own checkered soul. And for the very first time, this is the reflection I saw from my past, where I chose to be courageous. A 7-year-old me, running around frantically grabbing whatever I could in the middle of the night, waiting for my father to rescue my sister and I from a dangerously alcoholic mother. I loved and adored my mother. But somehow, even then, I mustered up the courage to leave the person who mattered most. A 22-year-old me, duped by a con artist boyfriend. This guy took me for every penny I had, left me sleeping on my girlfriend's couch. It was the lowest time of my life. I questioned everything, and my heart closed itself off. Yet over time, I found the courage to trust again when I thought I never could. There was a 35-year-old me in a so-called perfect marriage with 2 beautiful sons. Yet I wasn't happy. I was living an inauthentic life. I gave myself permission to pursue a dream I had, to become a pharmaceutical representative. I know that's not everybody's dream, but it was mine. Knowing I never finished that college degree. But I got the job anyway. This gave me the courage and the confidence I needed to make a very difficult decision, to initiate a divorce, knowing I would get tremendous disapproval from everyone around me. It took courage, and it took heart for me to know that my 2 beautiful sons would be better off with a mother that was whole rather than broken. With this new realization that I too had been courageous, I decided to stand shoulder to shoulder with my survey ladies. And I made the shift from I'm embarrassed and ashamed from my stories I found my strength and courage in my stories. I am now proud of how I found the courage to get through some of the worst moments of my life. Because not everybody does. But I did. And so did my survey ladies. When I asked my dear friend Rosa what she thought of the stories in the survey, she told me, Terry, for the very first time, I don't feel alone. Can you imagine the power that we get when we give ourselves permission to tell our stories? And then recognizing the courage it took to live through those stories? When we own up and uncover our story, we are no longer victimized by them. Instead, we can connect to our heart, find our courage, and know that we no longer have to hide like I did, portraying this perfect life and the perfect woman. Oh my gosh, I finally realized we've been perfect all along. All those bumps and bruises make us more wise and beautiful than ever. Courage lives in all of us. We just have to give ourselves permission to look deep inside. And I am confident we will all find many more stories of courage we finally need to acknowledge. Today, I am so proud to tell you, my mother overcame her addiction, went back to school. She became a registered nurse. And today, she is my hero and my inspiration. How will you define courage in your lives? And how will you use it to shape our future together? What are we waiting for? Is it permission? Do we need to write a permission slip to ourselves from ourselves? We're the only ones that can give ourselves permission to look deep inside and mine courage from our past and celebrate it every single day. So own up to your courage. Help others around you do the same. After all, isn't that what we all need? Is to see the vulnerability and the strength in each other? Hold up a mirror and ask yourself, have I been courageous? If you take the time and dig deep, I will guarantee you the answer will be yes. Thank you.